Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. My name is Kira Hill. I am your sommelier and guide of these vinoculture wine education videos. I am here today to talk with you about Gewürztraminer, a really delightful grape and one that's often misunderstood, I feel. So I am here to break apart some of the confusion about the grape and hopefully convince you to try a Gewürztraminer or 3 out in the next couple of weeks after this video. So, Gewürztraminer, that's how it's pronounced. The W in there is pronounced like a V. It's a German word. Gewürz is the German word for spice because it smells pretty spicy, like cloves and cinnamon and nutmeg, allspice, all of those things. So Gewürz is the German word for spice, and then Traminer. So Gewürztraminer is how that is pronounced. There is a lot of miscommunication about what this grape is and where it is from. But basically, it is part of the Sauvignon family. So not Sauvignon Blanc, not Cabernet Sauvignon, not that family, but Sauvignon. So S-A-V-A-G-N-I-N, Sauvignon. And this family is basically broken down into a bunch of different clones that are very distinct and have very different profiles. There's Sauvignon Blanc, there's Sauvignon Rosé, and then there's Gewürztraminer, which is thought to be a mutation, a genetic mutation of Sauvignon Rosé. So it has a deeper pinkish hue to the grape, the skin of the grape itself, and it leads to these wines that are much more like rich and gold in color because of that pigment that comes from the grape skin. It's also very, very aromatic. So it's considered an aromatic mutation of Sauvignon Rosé, one of the categories of the Sauvignon family. So all different clones, same genetic profile. Instead of a family, they're definitely different clones. So tune in for another video, hopefully soon, about what clones mean and why they're different than just different grape varieties or a family of grape varieties like the Pinot family. Pinot Noir, Pinot Grigio, Pinot Auxerrois, all of those things are part of a Pinot family. This is not part of a family necessarily. They're all just different clones that have very different personalities. So it's like if you had quadruplets and they all have different personalities, but it's kind of almost the exact same DNA. And that's kind of how grape clones work. So often people think that it's actually related to the Traminer family or all of the Traminer wines from the northern Italian region of Traminer. But it's actually native to Germany. The genetic mutation is thought to have occurred in northwest Germany. Just a really, really aromatic, fun grape variety that can be made from in a super dry style to a very, very, very sweet style and everything in between. Sometimes people think that it's only sweet wine. It's kind of in that Riesling misnomer category where they hear the word Riesling or the word Gewürztraminer and they think sweet wine, but it's often made in a very, very dry style. And we're gonna be tasting one of those today. So, Gewürztraminer is grown all over the world, a lot in Alsace, France, a lot in Germany, a lot in northern Italy. And we're going to be tasting a Washington state Riesling, so it's really growing in popularity in the Washington region. And we're going to be tasting a Gewürztraminer by Brandebourg. So Brandebourg is a tiny little winery. It's been around for I guess like 40 years in Elkton, Oregon, and self-taught winemakers. It's a Terry and Sue Brandebourg husband and wife team, and they've just learned so much and just brought all of that knowledge in a really great way, but in a very small production way to the rest of the world. So this Gewürztraminer is from 2015, a really warm vintage. Like in a series of like vintages that like for 3 vintages in a row just kept breaking records for how warm it was getting. So we shall see how that continues to change the wine world in Washington state. But it comes from 2 different vineyard sites, both of which were planted in 1983. So we've got some age on those vines, and we're gonna taste this today. So only about 800 or so cases of this produced. So really, really tiny production, and family owned and operated winery, and I'm really excited to taste this dry Gewürztraminer with you. So right off the bat, the nose, oh wow, so aromatic, Definitely like those cloves, cinnamons, nutmeggy, spicy things. It's like a pumpkin spice latte, but in a glass. I get some like cantaloupe, some like yellow melon notes off this. Obviously lots of lychee. Lychee is like the primary fruit characteristic you always get in Gewürztraminer. It's that Korean fruit that it looks like a gumball on the outside, a white gumball, and you peel it and it looks like a grape on the inside, like an unpeeled grape or a peeled grape on the inside. So it's really interesting fruit. If you ever get a chance to try lychee, definitely give it a shot. It's really interesting. But it has like this green and yellow characteristic across the board. It smells a little bit more on the clementine, tangerine side of the citrus family. And loads of flowers. I mean, just honeysuckle off the bat, definitely. Fresh like spring white flowers. I get a little bit of like this white pepper spice too on top of all the other spices that we named, those like pumpkin spices. These candied peach and like dried apricot notes as well. So so much fruit, so many flowers, so much spices going on here. The nose is a very, very aromatic. Gewürztraminer is one of the most aromatic grapes out there, so it's kind of easier to nail on a blind tasting. And yeah, just totally jumping out of the glass. We're gonna give it a taste now. The color, by the way, is actually not as dark as you'd think it would be for Gewürztraminer. Sometimes they're much more golden hue because of that pigment of the skin. So the color is more of just like a straw with a slight yellow, maybe copper tones, but just slightly on that. We're gonna give it a taste. We're going to probably expect higher alcohol content, and we're gonna expect lower levels of acidity, because that's the natural tendency of Gewürztraminer, to be higher alcohol content and lower levels of acidity, which makes it easier to drink on its own, I'd say. But it also, winemakers have to be really careful to prevent any oxidation to decrease even more the acidity and freshness of a wine. And they also will prevent malolactic fermentation. That's that secondary fermentation process that happens in all reds, but very few white wines. And it gives it that creamy, buttery texture. You think that oaky, buttery Chardonnay of California. Malolactic fermentation is what gives the butter component to that Chardonnay. So they work actively to prevent malolactic fermentation across the board when you're making Gewürztraminer, because you're trying to retain any natural freshness and acidity and vibrance in the wine. So we're gonna expect lower levels of acidity and higher alcohol, but that's just the expectation from knowing about Gewürztraminer. Let's see what this wine does for us. So wow, this wine is super dynamic. It is really, really, really elegant, very feminine. All of those flowers are definitely on the texture. I also get some like brown pear on the palate that I didn't necessarily get on the nose, and it's really lovely. But it's a richer wine, right? There's no sweetness on this. There is no residual sugar. It is a dry Gewürztraminer. But it is softer, lower levels of that acid, definitely. I don't feel that quite as much. I do get a little bit of higher alcohol content. Let's see what this is. Let's see, 14.2%. So yeah, that's kind of high for a white wine. But it is integrated really well. It doesn't seem like it's off-putting at all when you taste the wine. All of that fruit just comes out, definitely like those cantaloupe notes, those lychee notes, tons of white flower, a little bit of spice on the back end, but mostly for me, the spice of Gewürztraminer is actually on the nose. And on the palate, it's all the fruit and the flower notes, the floral notes of the wine. So really, really lovely. I love pairing Gewürztraminer with spicier food. I think that the spicier food, the savory food, balances out the fruitiness and the floral characteristics of the wine. And because it has lower acid, that acid in the wine isn't going to make that spice pop too much. So If you love eating spicy food and always struggle to find the right wine to go with it, because most people are going to recommend wine with some sort of sweetness to it, and you don't like sweet wines maybe, try dry Gewürztraminer. Lower levels of acid, so it's not going to accentuate that spice. That floral note is going to tame it without having that extra like sugar on the palate. Really gorgeous wine here. I'm always impressed by everything Brandborg does. Elkton, to be brave enough to like not be in Willamette Valley, that's the name everybody knows, and to just be out there in a lesser known region and make a lesser known grape variety is pretty brave, and sometimes people do it well and sometimes people don't. Brandborg does this well, and everything I've ever had by Brandborg, same thing across the board. So second taste, I'm getting all of like the clementines, that orange, sweeter citrus. Not that I'm getting sweetness on the wine, but just those clementines, tangerines, navel oranges, fresh squeezed, like ripe orange fruit. Really delightful on there. So highly, highly, highly recommend you trying out Brandborg Gewürztraminer from Elkton in Oregon. And this is the 2015, which is their current release. If you're in the Hampton Roads area and watching this currently, which is springtime of 2020 in the midst of coronavirus, I have this available if you're interested in it. Outside of that, look anywhere at any wine store that you frequent, hopefully a little small family-owned and operated bottle shop, and ask them about dry Gewürztraminer. It doesn't have to be from Oregon. It can be from Alsace, France. They make spectacular wines. It could be from Germany, and it could be from northern Italy as well. So those are the three key regions. I just wanted to feature the one that I currently had in my refrigerator and wanted an excuse to open, which was this video. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you learned something about the Gewürztraminer grape, and I hope it gives you that extra impetus to go try out a dry Gewürztraminer. So we'll see you next time, and until then, cheers.